There are things that every buyer should investigate when buying a home. Most buyers check 0 of them, and some people find out about them after it's already too late to do anything about. These are the things that most home buyers weren't told to research before they made an offer, or especially during your inspection timeframe. These things are not always obvious. And before I get into it, if you need help navigating a real estate transaction, you can connect with me. The info is in the description below. Okay, let's talk about restrictions on a property. This is one that is completely invisible until you go looking for it. And by the time most people find out about it, they've already owned the home. Every property can have restrictions attached to it that have nothing to do with an HOA and nothing to do with a seller. It can be in the form of a deed restriction, easements, rental restrictions that run with the land itself, and these don't always show up in the listing info. And if you don't know they exist before you buy, you could close on a home and find out you can't use it the way you planned after the fact. I was showing a home just this past weekend, and the listing agent was there and pointing out a strip of land that was technically part of the property that I was looking at, but it ran directly through the neighboring home's backyard. It existed purely as a driveway access easement, so make sure you understand not just your property lines, but the easements that affect the land around you, because they can affect what you can and what you can't do with your own property, or it could impact your view. And this sometimes can go way beyond driveways. Say you buy a home with a beautiful backyard, and from day one, your plan is to put a pool in. You close, you hire a pool company, and they come out and they assess the yard, and then they tell you there is a utility easement running through the exact section where the pool would need to go. You cannot build there, not now, not ever. The easement gives a utility company legal access to that portion of your property, and a lot of times there's nothing you can do about it after you close. In Atlanta's in-town neighborhoods, especially where a lot of homes sit on older lots with long, complicated histories, easements and deed restrictions come up more than people realize. Make it a standard part of your due diligence on every home you are seriously considering. And another thing to consider is what's running under your yard. This one is so specific, and it's so important because it's the kind of thing that doesn't come up until after you close, and then by then, there's nothing you can do about it. A colleague of mine dealt with this situation that has stuck with me for years. Her clients bought a home here in Atlanta, great house, great neighborhood, great price. Their number one goal, the thing they talked about from the very first showing, was putting in a pool. They bought the home. A year later, they hired a pool company to come out and assess the backyard, and that's when they found out an old sewer line was running directly through the middle of the yard, right through the exact spot where the pool would have to go. No pool, not ever, not on that property. This is why I tell every buyer who has any plans for their yard, a pool, a guest house, an addition, a detached garage, anything, get a survey done. A survey will show you exactly what is running under or through that property. So utility lines, easements, old sewer infrastructure, all of it. The information can absolutely change the way that you feel about a home before you've committed to it. And this might be something that you haven't even thought about. If you are buying a home on a septic system and you have any plans to build an additional structure on that property, whether it's a pool house, a workshop, a carriage house, anything, you need to find out exactly where the septic lines run before you buy. Septic systems have drain fields that extend well beyond the tank itself. Those drain fields require significant setback distances from any new construction. And depending on the size of the lot and where those lines run, your plans for that property may simply not be possible. A survey and a septic inspection are not expensive relative to the price of a home. And the information they give you before you buy is priceless. Third, let's talk about the parking situation. Most buyers think about parking in the context of condos or townhomes. And yes, I've talked about that in other videos, but parking in condo buildings deserves its own serious look. But this can also apply to single-family homes too, especially in some of Atlanta's most desirable in-town neighborhoods. In areas like Ponce Highland, Grant Park, Inman Park, parts of Decatur, older homes were built in an era when families had maybe one car if they had any at all. Some of these homes have driveways that can realistically only fit one car, and some have no off-street parking at all, or it can be very limited. And street parking in these neighborhoods can be genuinely competitive, especially in the evenings and on weekends when residents are home and guests are visiting. So before you fall in love with a home, think through your actual daily life. How many cars do you have? Do you have people over all the time? Do you have family who visits and stays? Parking sounds so simple, but it can be a pain if it's never available. And here's something buyers don't always think to check. Some in-town Atlanta neighborhoods have residential permit parking zones, meaning street parking near the home is restricted to residents with permits during certain hours. You see this a lot, especially over in the Emory neighborhoods. Find out whether the home comes with those permits, how many, and what the process is for getting them. It sounds like a small detail, but it's important. Also, check the neighborhood at different times of the day. This one sounds obvious, but I want to make the case for why it matters more than most buyers give it credit for. The house you tour on Wednesday afternoon at 2 o'clock is not the same experience at the house at 7 in the morning when the neighborhood is waking up, or at 6 in the evening when everyone is coming home from work, or on a Friday night when the restaurant down the street fills up and spills into the surrounding streets. Here's my advice. Drive through multiple times at different hours, different days. What is the traffic like during your actual commute window? How does this street feel at night? Is there constant noise or activity when you weren't necessarily expecting it? Are there commercial properties nearby where those hours might affect your daily life in the ways that weren't obvious during a midday showing? And while you're out doing that, look around at what's undeveloped near the property. In Atlanta's biggest growth corridors, land gets developed fast. A beautiful open field near the home you are considering may already have a zoning application pending. A large parcel a few blocks away may be approved for something that will change the character of the area significantly. The fifth thing, flood zone and environmental risk. This one can require some effort because the easy sources are not always reliable. Third-party real estate websites sometimes include environmental risk scores on listings. And I want you to know those scores are generated by some sort of algorithm and they can be significantly inaccurate. One time I listed a home in Atlanta that received a high flood risk score on one of these third-party sites, and it was only based on a presence of a small creek that has never had a history of flooding. For flood zone statuses, go directly to the FEMA website and look up the property address on the official flood map. That is the authoritative source. That is what your lender and your insurance company are going to use. If the property is in a designated flood zone, flood insurance is not optional. And it's an added expense on your homeowner's insurance that you weren't expecting. And this one happens more than you think. Do not skip your final walkthrough. The final walkthrough is your last opportunity to verify the condition of the home before the transaction is complete. It should happen as close to the closing as possible, ideally within 24 hours. You are walking through to confirm the home is in the same condition as when you went under contract, that any agreed repairs that needed to be done by the seller have been completed, and that nothing has changed or broken from the time of your inspection to closing date. I've seen water heaters fail between the inspection and closing. I've seen damage happen during a seller's move out. I've seen agreed upon repairs that were never done. Every one of those situations was caught at the final walkthrough, which gave the buyer the ability to address it before signing their life away at the closing table, when they still had some leverage. Once you sign at the closing table and get those keys, the home is yours. So whatever condition it is in that moment is your reality. The final walkthrough is not a formality. It is one of the most important steps in the entire process, so treat it that way. And hey, if you found this video helpful, you might want to check out this next one. It is the biggest mistakes buyers make once they are actually in the process. I covered that in my next video. Link is on the screen right now. I hope to see you over there.